Welcome back. This is the story called My Best Dream Ever. This was a dream that I had while I was married and I had my kids. At one point, I moved out. I moved into my own apartment because I couldn't stand being with my ex. And it was while I was in this apartment that I had this dream. To give you a little background, I am and have always been, since I was 16 years old, a Bruce Springsteen fan. And I came to the conclusion at one point in my life that 1978 was the best year to have seen Bruce Springsteen in concert. In fact, he came to St. Louis in 1978, but I was only 14 at the time, and I didn't have any friends that drove, and I didn't have a big brother, so I didn't go. But he did come to St. Louis in 1978. Eventually, I got my hands on a bootleg, which is an album that was produced without permission, of a concert that he did in 1978 in San Francisco. It was a 3-record set. I got it from a record store in St. Louis. And that concert, that album, whatever, changed my life. From that moment on, I was totally dedicated to Bruce Springsteen. And my only regret was that I didn't see him in 1978 when I had the chance to do so. So I had this dream. And in this dream, Bruce Springsteen and his band were going to perform a complete concert, a total replica of a 1978 concert. He was going to reproduce an entire concert from 1978. That's what was going on in the dream. I was on a bus, like a city bus, with a bunch of people, like 10 people, and a driver. And we were driving around because the location of the concert was a secret. Nobody knew where this concert was going to happen, but it was going to happen. And we're driving around, and we see this car, and we could see the person in the car was a member of the Bruce Springsteen band, the E Street Band. And we were like telling the driver, follow that car, that guy's going to the concert, we know, follow that car. So we follow that car, we get to this building. And the concert is in the basement of the building. And for some reason, when we started, we were like on the 5th floor, even though it was the ground floor, but we were like 5 floors above where the concert is going to take place. And we were like jumping. We were jumping down the staircases. Imagine you're inside a stairwell, like maybe 1 foot would touch the stairs, and then we'd go to the landing. That's how quickly we were trying to get downstairs to see this concert. So finally, we get to the basement of this building. The door opens. I stumble into the basement, and I fall down on the ground because I've been jumping down these steps. And I'm lying on the ground, and I look up, and I can see there's 5 microphone stands. There's no musicians there. Bruce wasn't there. There was 5 microphone stands and 2 guitar stands with guitars. No amps, no nothing, just these 5 mic stands. But I knew, in the dream, I knew that this was it. I found it. This was the location where Bruce was about to perform a concert, a total reproduction of a recreation of a 1978 concert. So I was there. I made it. I got there. I look up, and there's about 12 chairs, folding chairs in the front. And sitting right in the front row is Donna Jaffe. Donna Jaffe was my girlfriend from high school. When Bruce Springsteen came to St. Louis in 1981 on the River Tour, I bought tickets for myself and Donna to go to the concert. Donna knew nothing about Bruce Springsteen. And she said to me, the day of the concert, she came up to me, she goes, I don't want to go to the concert tonight. I want to go buy socks. That's what she wanted to do. She wanted to buy socks instead of going to the Bruce Springsteen concert that we had tickets for that night. And I said, no way. You are not buying socks. We're going to this concert. We go into the concert. Long story short, she fell in love with Bruce. She became the biggest Bruce Springsteen fan that you will ever meet in your life. She's seen him countless times. So when I hit that floor in the dream, I looked up at her. I saw her sitting there, and I said to her, I knew you would be there because she's such an insider. She's such a fan that she would have known about this mysterious concert that was happening, this reproduction concert. So she sat right there in the front row. She smiled at me and she goes, of course I'm here. I'm Bruce's biggest fan, so of course she was here. So I woke up, didn't see the concert. The concert did not take place, but I woke up knowing that I was about to see that concert. I got up, I went on my computer. This is 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I happen to know that Donna Jaffe at that point owned a company that made board games for kids. I went online, I went to her website where she was selling these games, and her picture was on the website with her email address. So in the middle of the night, I wrote her, remember I'm not living at home now, I'm living in an apartment. I wrote her this email to Donna. I had no communication with her for decades about this dream. I told her about the dream that I had, and I sent her an email. The next day she writes, and she's in San Francisco. She lives in San Francisco. The next day she writes back and she says, I'm going to be in Orlando for a toy convention in 2 weeks. Do you want to get together? I couldn't believe it. I mean, Donna Jaffe was the one woman, she was the one who got away. That was the one woman that my whole adult life, I believed, was the one that I should have been with. When she was a sophomore in college, I was a freshman. She dumped me when I was a sophomore. We dated, since high school, but she dumped me when I was in college for some guy named Alan. And she'd married this guy, and she was still with him. She was still with Alan after all these years. So I always looked at it, and I always said, well, I finished number 2. Alan finished first, I was second. She left me to go to Alan, so I didn't feel so bad about it. So we end up meeting. I say, okay, so we go down, I pick her up at her hotel. We go out to dinner. She's talking all about the conference and everything. And the whole time I'm like, I'm getting kind of a really bad vibe from her. I couldn't explain it, but she was like so enthusiastic about this conference. I almost felt it was kind of a phony attitude. But anyway, we had dinner. We ended up going back to the hotel. She was staying in a very nice hotel. We go back to the hotel. We go up to her room, and we end up in bed together. And this is a girl that I hadn't seen like in 29 years. Well, I was so freaked out by the whole situation that I couldn't get hard. I couldn't get an erection the whole time. First time that ever happened to me. So she was going to be there a second night. So the next morning, instead of going to work, I went right to my doctor's office. And I told my doctor what had happened, and he gave me a sample of Cialis, which is like Viagra. He said, take this Cialis 2 hours before you see her, and it only works with direct sexual contact. So in other words, it's not going to give you an erection just sitting around. You actually have to be having sex for this erection to happen. So I go back and see her the second time in a row, and at this time I'm on Cialis, and I told her about it, and she says to me, well, do you have a boner right now? That's what she says. Do you have a boner right now? I said, no. You need direct sexual contact for the boner. So we end up back in her hotel room. And she also told me that she was breaking up with Alan, right? They've been married for 30 years. She was breaking up with him. She told me they got into a big fight where she threw a ceramic vase or vase, whatever you call it, vase, at him. He called the police on her. She ended up getting arrested, put in the police station. They told me they strip searched her and stuck her in a shower by herself while she was naked. And eventually she was planning to divorce this guy, but they were broken up. She also told me that at some point recently she'd gone to Michigan and she'd met some guy whom she'd had an affair with years before. So I got this conclusion that this was some kind of a high infidelity situation. If you remember that movie with John Cusack, he went around to all his old girlfriends, to see what was going on. So I thought she was doing, the same thing with her old boyfriends. So the second night I was there with her on Cialis, but unfortunately it didn't really work as well as I hoped it would. So I never really got to finish what I was doing. And then I went home and I never saw her again, never contacted her again, never saw her again, never felt the same way about her. I was relieved because seeing her again made me think, oh God, I probably wouldn't even have dated this woman if I'd met her for the first time because she was so, like I said, so over the top enthusiastic about her conferences she was going to. I felt she was kind of a phony. And that was it. And she left and I never saw her again. And that was the story of my best dream ever. Don't forget to read my book, Broccoli Time by Dante Allen, available now on Amazon Books.